Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Friday to you all. It's good to see you. Sauna is a little cheated that we're not having Family First Friday. Yes, well, 4th of July got in the way of that, but we'll get another First Friday here for families here soon. This is Freeform Friday, and so much has happened in the last 2 weeks since we met that I want to talk through with you a little bit. And I know for some, you can't get enough of politics. For others, you're just so tired of hearing about it. And I get it. Hopefully, I will bring a little different perspective than most of what you're hearing. But I'm not interested in simply being novel. I want us to think through what's happening in our world, and especially here in the U.S. I realize we have some folks in other nations, and though we're focusing, or I'm concentrating on what's happening here in the U.S., the principle applies no matter where you are. So I want to remind you. Well, let me ask you this question: how many times have you had your church leaders quote a verse like, "Pray that the Lord of the harvest would send laborers into the harvest," and then encourage the church to pray for missionaries, for evangelists, for the gospel to go forth? I'm guessing every one of you has heard that, fairly often, that encouragement, or in prayer meetings, or those kinds of things. We take Jesus' words there, even though we so often rip it out of its context. And some of you may be thinking through what I mean by that, and now you're going to go look, like Darren the Immerser is probably going to go look and realize, oh, maybe I've misunderstood this. But anyway, we'll get there eventually. But so we take those kind of verses and the other prayers, and we pray for healing for people, pray for jobs when guys are out of work or women are out of work or whatever. But we don't take other instructions to pray, especially when it comes to politics. Christian says politics is show business for ugly people. Who said that? I saw somebody online who said that just this past week. But it does matter. It should matter. Everything is political. Now, not everything is political in the sense of the just constant media attention. Not like that. But everything is political, and we should care. And again, I don't care how much time you spend on social media, following every news item down the path. Some of you probably need to stop that. Do you have on your iPhone or whatever phone you use? Do you have the reminder of how much time you spend on your phone? If you have that option, you should turn it on and let that at least alert you to how much time you're spending on different things. Anyway, we looked, I think it was just yesterday, at Isaiah 42 as it applied to Matthew. But I want to remind you of what it says here to get to our purposes today. This is Isaiah 42, speaking of the coming one, who is called here Jacob and Israel. He says, "Jacob is my servant, I lay hold of him. Israel is my chosen, my soul has accepted him. I have put my spirit upon him." And notice what it says here. "He will bring forth judgment to the nations." That is a political statement. When his servant comes, he's going to bring forth judgment to the nations. Down here, "A bruised reed he will not break, a smoking wick he will not quench, but he will bring forth judgment for truth. He will blaze up and not be overwhelmed until he has established judgment on the earth, and nations will hope in his name." If you read this and think this is only about quote unquote gospel ministry, which we have reduced to believe so that you can be saved, justification by faith kind of thing, then you're misreading the text and many other texts. In fact, the whole narrative of the scripture. Remember the description of Jesus, we get King of Kings, Lord of Lords. That means there are other kings and there are other lords. Kings and lords rule over nations. There are many nations, and there are many kings and many lords, and there is one king that has the highest rank of all the kings. And there's one Lord that outranks all the other lords, and all those other kings and lords are to bow the knee to the high King Jesus. The nations are his inheritance. The nations are. That is a political statement, because politics has to do with the governing of nations. So we must care what our governments are doing. And in societies like most of us, or nations like most of us live in, we have the ability to vote, to choose who our kings are, so to speak, and who the lawmakers are that pass laws. And we want them to pass laws that are pleasing to the high King Jesus. One more, and then we'll talk practically. When Jesus taught his disciples to pray, and we will look at this down the road when we get to chapter 6 of Matthew, he says, "Pray thus, our Father who is in the heavens, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done," or come to pass here, "as in heaven also on the earth." Do you see the implication of this? His kingdom coming will mean that just as his will is coming to pass in heaven, it'll also come to pass on earth. That is a political statement. We want his will to be done on earth and his kingdom to come to this earth. And all the time we've spent, those of you who have been with us a while, the time we've spent talking about that kingdom. So I want to help us get away from the mere abstract thinking of this and the mere theological thinking of this to the practical today. How do we think through the things happening and pray about them? This is one of the reasons I continue to harp on systematic theology. We can take statements like this and we can debate with other Christians and scholars about whether or not Jesus' kingdom is here now. And pretty much all except dispensationalists believe it's here in some form. Even historic premillennialists would believe it's here in some form. And we can debate that and argue for it and try to persuade others, no, he's reigning now, he's reigning now, he's reigning now, and leave it in the theoretical and the systematic, rather than thinking through the implications of the fact that he is reigning now and he is conquering his enemies and he is ruling the nations now and bringing the nations to justice. If you just argue theologically, you take on some ism and put on the jersey, then you're going to fight with other isms over what is true and entirely miss the point of why Jesus tells us these things. He is ruling today, July 11th, year of our Lord Jesus 2025, he is ruling the nation of America and Canada and the UK and Iran and Iraq and Syria and Mexico and on. He's ruling them all and bringing them to justice and bringing peace. Do you see? So we need to interpret things with that truth in mind and not simply debate and argue theologically. All right, so let's get practical here. Darren says, is there such a thing as historical post-mill? If not, I'll start a Facebook page. That's funny. All right, so before we get into some of the bigger topics, let me just highlight a few things that are so encouraging to me. It's coming. I keep telling you things are coming. There is I saw just today, I saw there is a company in some European nation. I forget. Yeah, I can't remember which one. But they are developing eyeglasses like these that autofocus. The goal is to eventually get away from bifocals or progressives or whatever glasses you may have to wear, and the lenses will see where you are looking and adjust appropriately. So I have what's called presbyopia, short arms disease. It hit me when I was like 45. I remember one day I literally got in the pulpit and realized this Bible that I've been reading from this same vantage point for all these years, I couldn't see the words because it was too close, and I had to step back. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Apart from that, I've had 20/20 vision, better than 20/20, all my life, and I still have 20/20 at distance, but I can't read. Even my computer here in front of me, I can't read it without these. Everything's fuzzy. So to get these lenses that automatically adjust when I'm looking down here versus when I'm looking up there, looking afar, they're going to do that all on their own. How cool is that? I'm excited. I would love to not have to have progressive lenses, or these are called immersive lenses, or whatever. It's coming. I saw that there are more Neuralink clients, recipients recently. More and more people who can't use their body from the neck down kind of thing, paraplegics, controlling computers with their minds, being able to do things and communicate with their minds. And I heard Musk say recently that blindness, deafness, all of those things, he sees a pathway to cure those problems in a lot of people. Crazy. I saw that there was some of you may know this. I should have written down the details. There was a robot that performed a certain kind of surgery. First time it had been done, and it was done flawlessly. Does anybody remember that story? Anybody see that? When you think about it, a robot, a machine using AI, there's no room for human error eventually when they perfect these things, and our surgeries are going to be performed flawlessly. It's going to be fantastic. And someone mentioned Grok. Yeah, Grok 4 is out, and I haven't had a chance to play with it much. Plus, most of what I use it for, I'm not sure it's going to be so much better than Grok 3 was. Maybe. But for those who can take advantage of the thinking and the deep search kind of stuff, it's going to be something, apparently. And Elon said it's going to produce new physics next year, which is crazy to think about. Anyone ever listen to Adventures in Odyssey? Reminds me of Novacom. My kids listen to all of them. In fact, as a young adults, they've all listened to them again recently, but I don't remember that part. So anyway, a lot of good stuff happening. All right, well, let's talk about Epstein, deep state, some of that kind of stuff. And here's a little bit of the journey I've been on as all this came out. And the nice thing about having to wait a week or so to talk to you is it gives me time to think and some new news to come out. And again, I know some of you, have fatigue of all this, and that's fine. But I do think as Christians, we need to think through these things differently from the world. So here's a question I have for you. If you are convinced that Epstein was running the sex trafficking blackmail scheme, and that all of these politicians and world leaders and Hollywood moguls and others, they're all guilty and there's mountains of evidence, why do you think that? Well, I know why, because people in the media that you listen to and follow tell you that. as I've said to you a lot recently, we always have to be careful. We have to ask the question, how could those people know this? I mean, the media has been telling us this for years. How could they know this? So here's what I thought when that cabinet meeting the other day, when Bondi made her statement and Trump interrupted before she even got a chance to answer and said, why are we even talking about this? The creep is gone. Let's move on. And then Bondi, made her statement about the list and what she meant when she said the file was on her desk and all this. I see a lot of people not thinking very clearly about a lot of this. For instance, one of the things people said was, why is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, if there are no clients? Well, go look at the documents, the court documents. Have Grok read them to you. She was guilty of bringing girls to Epstein. That was established, proven, and she was convicted for that. So if there turns out to be nothing more with Epstein, she did horrible, illegal things, and that's why she's in prison. So the argument, why is she in jail if there are no other clients? That's just not thinking carefully. Do you see that? So people think that's a good argument. It's not a good argument. No, she was convicted for what we know happened. He did bring underage girls to his island, to his home. She recruited, she participated in that, and that's why she's in prison. So it's just not a good argument. So don't go down that path. But here's what I thought when Bondi, and then before that was Patel and Bongino came out and said, there's no there kind of thing. And the video clips the next day, actually later that night, started coming out of all three of them when they were making a big deal of the Epstein files and the clients and all that. Here's the thing, and again, I've been warning you of this, or cautioning you, I guess. When Bondi and Patel and Bongino were all strongly making very big statements about the seriousness of this and all the implications of the Epstein lists and files and how they're going to come out, they have to be exposed and all this, they were all doing so when they were making money for talking about these kind of things. Bongino had a very successful podcast. Kash Patel was on lots of media. Bondi was on lots of media. They didn't have access to the information, and their income was based upon getting more people to follow them and view them and return to them for information. So it is certainly possible. And prior to something that just happened a couple days ago, I would have said likely that when they were talking heads, when they were in the media, they went down the path that all the conservative media went down, making a big deal of this, even though they didn't have actual facts to back it up. And then once they get into the positions where they have the facts, they can read the documents for themselves, and it's their job to do the right thing, their tune changed. Okay, so I'm not sure that is the most likely situation at the moment now because of something else, which I'll get to in a moment. But do you at least follow my reasoning? Do you see what I'm saying? It makes perfect sense to me that when they are in the news/media realm, they're going to talk about whatever is going to get people back. But they couldn't have known. Dan Bongino, whatever his name is, when he's doing his podcast, like me right now, for me to come out and make a strong statement about the Epstein stuff, when all I know is what the rest of you know online, how can I possibly make a definitive statement I don't have access to anything. Neither did Bongino when he was doing podcasts. Neither did Bondi when she was a Fox News contributor and so on, whatever else she did. But then she gets into a position where she actually can see everything and things change. Do you see that? So I keep telling you, follow the money. Watch out for anybody whose income is based on getting you back there. Just be cautious. Be cautious. So is everybody tracking with my argument? Again, whether I persuade you or you agree with me or on conclusions is not my point here. My point is, do you at least understand the caution? Put very simply, what I'm saying is, for me, there's no contradiction for Kash Patel to say one thing when he's not the FBI director and another when he is, when the first situation is his income is based on generating followers, and now his income is based on doing what is just and right as the FBI director. To me, there's no conflict at all. Well, there might be. There's conflict in the sense that in the first scenario, he just shouldn't be making those statements when he doesn't have the information. But it's how the world works, right? All right. So here's the thing that's happened in the last 2 days that has given me pause. So up to this, I would have been thinking, yeah, I'm going to take them at their word. I don't think Bondi and Patel and Bongino and Trump, I don't think they're liars. So if they say case closed, then I don't think they're lying. Now here's the piece of information that has come out that now gives me pause. Do you all know who Alan Dershowitz is? Former Harvard law professor and attorney. He defended Hillary Clinton some years ago for something. I don't remember exactly what. And then he defended Trump in Trump 1.0 on one of the impeachment charges. He defended him before Congress, I think. I may be misremembering all that. And I was impressed because he was a lifelong Democrat. I'm pretty sure he says he voted for Clinton and Obama, probably Joe Biden, though I'm not sure. But I was impressed because he seemed in his presentations to be concerned about the Constitution and said, even though he wasn't a Trump supporter, the impeachment was a sham and unconstitutional. And so he was willing to stand up for what was right, even against his former party and all that. And so that caused me to start following him more. And I have to say, I have been largely impressed with his objectivity when it comes to the Constitution, which is really where I wish all of our politicians and lawyers would get to. By the way, side note, thinking of Grok, so think about if we were to allow AI, I should wait because we should talk about this another time. Allow AI to assimilate all of the the laws of the land and prioritize the Constitution, we should get a perfect rendering of law situations, law cases. Unlike health, which is so varied, and how do you I'm going down a rabbit trail. LLMs, by their very nature, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. That's why LLMs are never going to reach some sort of AGI kind of thing. Felix says Dershowitz has said that he will represent almost everyone once and only once. Interesting. Anyway, so yeah, let's get back to him. So he was accused by, is it Virginia Giuffre? I can't remember. She's the one that committed suicide recently, right? And claims to have been a victim of Epstein and used by him with many, many high-profile clients. And she accused Alan Dershowitz of being one of those clients. And he settled. He basically filed a defamation suit against her, and he won. She then backed off and said, well, maybe in all the tension of the moment, she misremembered who it was. So she had to back off of that. And as part of that lawsuit, if I understand this correctly, he came out 2 days ago and said, there is a list. I saw the list, and there are many high-profile names on that list, and it needs to come out regardless of the consequences. So, again, I'm not trying to persuade you of the truth of the Epstein list or anything else. I'm trying to help you think carefully and rightly about this. So here's what I'm saying. I gave you my reasoning for a few days ago, thinking I'm going to take Bongino and Bondi and all them. I'm going to take them at their word until proven otherwise. Though I do grant that the whole thing seemed weird. Trump certainly wasn't reading the room very well when he said, let's just move on. The guy's a creep and he's gone. Let's move on. And Bondi did stutter all over herself as she was responding, which I acknowledge that caused me to cock my head a little bit and say, I would love this to be more believable and persuasive. But again, I don't think they're liars. And so I would have, if I had done this podcast 3 days ago, I would have said, look, I think we just have to take them at their word. But then after Dershowitz says this, and he has established some credibility with me for objectivity, and he had a dog in that race, right? Or a dog in that fight, horse in that race. He had something at stake. He was being accused. And he persuaded the court that he was not guilty. There was no evidence, and got the accuser to back off and to admit she might have been misremembering. Which, of course, now taints any accusation she brings. This is why there always has to be 2 or 3 witnesses. Do you realize none of these accusers qualify as witnesses? As sad as that is, if they are guilty, the standard is, see, I could accuse you of anything. And if there's no one else that says, yes, I saw the same thing, not 2 different accusers of the same kind of crime, right? If one woman comes and says, he molested me, and another woman comes forth and says, he raped me, that is not 2 witnesses. That's 2 accusers, which is not the same thing. If that's our standard, then I can get anybody convicted of just about anything. All I have to do is find a couple other people that are willing to say, yeah, he did that to me too. And if our courts start allowing that to be the basis of conviction, we are in serious trouble. Do you see the difference? No, witnesses are, I saw him do that, and someone else says, yes, I saw him do that exact same thing as well. Not the same thing you're saying in another setting, but I saw that. So I saw Joe, rob that house. And someone else says, yes, I saw Joe rob that house as well. That's 2 witnesses, as opposed to one guy saying, I saw Joe rob that house, and another guy saying, yes, I saw Joe rob this house over here. Do you see the difference? That's 2 accusations as opposed to 2 witnesses. It's very important that we keep that straight, because that's what justice is. So now that Dershowitz has come out and says, I have seen the list, he's got credibility in my mind, which now causes me to back up and say, okay, I have to reconsider. There may be a list, maybe case is not closed. Then ask the question, why would Trump and the DOJ say the case is closed? And that's where you're going to see all kinds of theories about why. Some say he's using it to hold leverage over all these other nations because he's got all the blackmail material, and he wants to get peace and trade deals and stuff, so he's using it as leverage. Others are saying he's going to use it eventually to, expose all the deep state, and that's why the investigation into Comey and Brennan has now started, because that's going to unlock it all. Who knows? Who knows? It's very possible. I mean, Trump is very much a let's get her done now. He's not a 4D chess guy. You know me. I'm a Trump supporter and have been since 2015. I think he is brilliant as a strategist, as a deal maker, as a persuader. He's the best persuader I've ever seen. All those things. He doesn't play 4D chess. None of that has ever been proven. He's just very good at handling situations where it looks like he played 4D chess, but I don't see any of that. He's very much in the moment, what's the best thing to do right now? Which is why he pushed for the big, beautiful bill, even though it may increase our deficit. Long term, I think it'll reduce it. Long term, I think it's the path forward to getting everything where it needs to be. But slashing spending is not the first priority. That's a practical business decision that he made. I think it's the right one. We'll see. And the tariffs, I think, eventually it's going to be great. I don't think he's playing 4D chess, and I can't imagine him using blackmail as leverage. That's not a business decision. That's a different kind of political scheming that I just have not seen from Trump. So we'll see. I could be proven wrong. Again, I don't know. Neither do you. And the people you follow online, they don't know either. That's really the heart of it. They don't know. Now, Dershowitz has credibility because of all the things that I said. Sana says, do you think Trump could be on that list? No, I don't, for a couple reasons. Number one, I can't imagine Dershowitz representing Trump and defending him in the impeachment if he knew Trump was on that list. I can't see that. And number two, I do think there's some credibility in the argument that if he was on the list and the Dems knew it, they would have used it against him because I realize some of them would be implicated as well, but I think they'd figure out a way to use it against him. And then number three, the guy who represented Epstein, the lawyer, came out and said, I asked him point blank if he had anything on Trump, and Epstein said no. Now again, I'm just telling you what makes most sense to me. I can't prove any of this because I don't have firsthand knowledge of any of it, and neither do you. That's the biggest thing I'm trying to get you to think through here. We can't know. Be careful of trusting. We have to formulate opinions, and I do. And I just gave you my rationale for thinking that Dershowitz is credible in this scenario. And even what he said as he was describing seeing those who are on the list, he said there's even one prominent one. He didn't even hint at that it would be Trump. I forget how he described him, but it's not Trump he's thinking of. So yeah, I don't think there's any way that's on the list, that he's on the list. But please don't give your allegiance to your favorite pundit when they can't possibly know. Right? Bill O'Reilly came out and said Trump told him personally recently that there's a list, and if he released the names of the list, it would just throw the whole nation, in fact, maybe the whole world, into great turmoil. Bill O'Reilly makes his living getting you to come back and listen to him. I don't have any reason to think he's a liar, and that's a pretty specific thing to say if it's not true, but it goes against so much of the rest of what we've seen. So just don't join in the fray with your friends and family and online folks about things you can't possibly know. That's my encouragement. Tony says, with as much Washington leaks, I imagine we would have heard something. Yeah. The argument against that is that the Dems have so much to lose that if they were to reveal it, then they would all go down with him. So, Sana says, I don't really care about any of it, probably to a fault. Yeah, we do have to care, and that's going to lead me to why. Felix says Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago club after he hit on young girl in the 2000s. Yeah, I saw that story as well, and I hope that's true. That seems consistent. I mean, Trump has plenty of immorality in his past, but not foolish immorality. So that's not a justification of his actions, but he is not a fool, and he's done everything above the board as far as I can tell. All right. So last thing. Pray. Pray. Please join me in praying. So let me tell you the prayer I've been praying virtually every day when I walk for quite a while now. King Jesus is on the throne, and he's bringing justice to the nations. And he's bringing peace. I don't know. I prayed this prayer just the other day. Lord, please expose all, if anything having to do with what they're saying about Epstein's sex trafficking and all the worst of the worst, right? If that's true, bring it out. Even if Donald Trump is on that list, Lord, bring it out. As difficult as it would be for this nation and for the world if Trump is on the list and we're exposed, I mean, it would be awful. So many things would come crashing down, and the sense of hopelessness that would fill this land, I can't, it would be worse than 9/11, I think. Not the, please hear me in context. I think the sense of hopelessness, I'm not talking about, evaluating which is worse and that kind of thing. I'm just saying the sense of hopelessness would be worse. But even so, Lord, if he's part of it, whoever's part of it, please expose them all. If there's something there, expose it all. Because that's the just thing. And it's the way to greater righteousness and peace in this nation and the world. So I don't know. It may be that there is no there, that everything Epstein has done has been exposed and it's over and we should move on. It may be that, just as Bondi and them said, we should just move on. It may be that there's a big there, and that it truly would expose so many of our wicked leaders. If so, may it be so. King Jesus knows, and he cares, because the United States of America is a kingdom that is part of his inheritance, and he is ruling it with a rod of iron, and he is bringing justice to the nations. So this is what I say when I say get away from fighting about the kingdom. If you believe the kingdom is now, stop worrying about fighting with people all the time. I mean, there's a place for debate, but pray. The same Lord who said, pray that the Lord of the harvest would send workers into the field, says, pray that his kingdom would come and that his will would be done on earth, which means his will is that our government is righteous. If there's a deep state, I see a comment here, as much as deep state investigations of Trump and Democrats tried to, they would, I think that's probably true. But pray that King Jesus would reveal it all. See, I don't have to trust in Trump or Bondi or Patel or any of the rest. And I certainly don't have to trust in any of the online pundits. I trust in King Jesus. And I know what is good for the world is that all of these wicked folks would be exposed and crushed and brought to justice. So pray for that, and pray fervently for that. Jesus is the political leader par excellence. And all these passages that talk about bringing justice to the nations and the nations streaming to Zion, those are political statements. So sauna, for instance, you don't have to spend hours a day on all this stuff. That's not the point. I don't encourage that. But pray. It seems obvious to me, we do have a lot of men and women in Congress who are not committed to the Constitution and who are getting rich through injustice. And that's the least of the charges. The greatest of the charges is that some of them are involved in murder and corrupt, fraudulent stealing, and they certainly hate God's design for marriage, for childbirth and raising up families and the family unit itself and freedom of speech, all these things. They hate those designs. Pray. Beseech the King of Kings to, whether it's deep state or whatever it actually is that we can't possibly know with certainty. He knows it all. Imagine a world with all the great technology and stuff that we've been talking about. I mean, imagine Grok solving cancer. And yet getting in the way of those who could use Grok to do that because of our all the tax money going to these NGOs that are destroying everything, and the pharmaceutical control and lies and deceit, all the corruption. Righteousness says, let's get rid of it. Well, Jesus is the King of righteousness. And that doesn't just mean if you believe in him, you are righteous. Don't let theology, specifically Reformed theology, convince you that the gospel is simply about justification by faith. It is not. It is the crown of Jesus Christ, the kingdom of Jesus Christ, ruling the nations in righteousness. So I'm begging you, care enough about the truth of Jesus and the good of our nations to pray that his kingdom would come, that his will would be done on earth as it is in heaven. Start with your nation. And if you're in the U.S., start with your state. I live in Colorado. Believe me, I pray a lot for the exposure and destruction of the wicked in our state legislature, because from the governor all the way through, it is rotten to the core. Don't be theologians. Be Bible believers and pray. He is ruling the nations, and he does hear the prayers of his people, so pray. I'm asking you that. All right, going to leave it there. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday to continue with Matthew. Grace and peace to you.